I'm just waiting for the live stream. I'm just waiting for the live stream. Right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Governance, Risk and Audit Committee on the 25th of February. So I believe we have two apologies for absence. Just waiting for the live stream. Right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Governance, Risk and Audit Committee on the 25th of February. Do we think we should halt the meeting? So I believe we have two apologies for absence. Just waiting for the live stream. Right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Governance, Risk and Audit Committee on the 25th of February. Do we think we should halt the meeting? Right. Good afternoon again, members. We will try, and officers, we will try again. We think the technical situation has been resolved. So welcome to the Governance, Risk and Audit Committee exceptional meeting on 25th of February. Right. Good afternoon again, members. We will try, and officers, we will try again. We think the technical situation. To receive apologies for absence. So I understand we have two apologies for absence.
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Penfold and Councillor Vickers.
Thank you. We don't have any substitutions present. Do we have any declarations of interest, please? No declarations of interest. No items of urgent business, save the main item on the agenda. No? Okay, so it's the draft statement of accounts for 23-24, please. And if I hand over to our external auditor for him to talk us through them. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is item 5. Our report starts on page 11 of your pack. So I think I'd start by saying we're in a good position to sign off ahead of the 28th of February, which is the backstop date for the 23-24 accounts. However, I think it's just important to recap on the context of this report. So under the government legislation, we had to disclaim your 21-22 and 22-23 financial statements, and that was to achieve the 13th of December backstop date for those particular years. Now, you recall we've had a couple of conversations in committees in terms of the wider implications and the context around that. So when I turned to 23-24, the council produced the accounts in January of this year, which obviously left insufficient time for us to carry out an audit ahead of the 28th of February backstop. That meant we've gone straight to disclaim for 23-24, and that was in line with a letter sent by Stephen Reid, cluster lead for EY GPS, where essentially we were prioritising resources on those audits that had, or councils that had managed to produce accounts by the statutory deadline, which was last summer. Because of the significance of the issues, that again is reported as a value for money weakness. So you'll see in the value for money section, we've identified that as a value for money weakness, and that comes forward as an exception in the auditor's report. I think 24-25 is really the key year for the council to kind of turn that around. So getting accounts issued by the required deadline, which has been extended. So it's essentially the end of June for 25. But then also supporting an audit of those statement of accounts. If we weren't able to get to that position, I would then need to consider escalating in terms of the reporting that I've done. So at the moment, it's the VFM level, but then need to consider the next level, which would be a statutory recommendation. Just for the committee's understanding, a statutory recommendation is a recommendation to the council in the public arena. It needs to be considered by full council and a response approved by full council. So it's kind of escalating the severity of the issue and the actions then required. In terms of closing the audit, so we're planning to sign tomorrow. So we obviously need the signed documents. One of those will be letter of representation. That is a standard letter of representation for North Norfolk. There's nothing specific or additional that we've asked for in terms of representation. I think the focus now is on rebuilding that assurance starting from 24-25. I think it's important to note the context of that. So NAO guidance has been issued, sit for publications, LGA have released things. This is not going to be a 1-year fix. This will be a 3 to 5 year fix in order to get back to a clean opinion, of which we're all going to have to work together. But also there's additional things that will come out via the local audit strategy that are going to assist us in that sense. So that was all I was planning to say, but I'm more than happy to take any questions on the report.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on the report, please? Councillor Fletcher.
This might have been asked already, but this is on page 34, and this is under the heading governance. It says how the council ensures that it makes informed decisions and properly manages its risks, and significant risks are identified there. And I just wondered to what extent those have actually been resolved. I mean, on page 36, I think that there is a paragraph on that, but it wasn't entirely clear to me that the risks had actually been resolved, or whether they still exist.
Thank you.
So I can respond, but then maybe Tina might want to comment on the future in terms of what the council are doing. So on page 34, if I'm reading the right section there, that's identifying a risk against the governance criteria as set by the NEO, and that's specifically in relation to the council's ability to meet financial reporting deadlines. So it's specifically that bit. It's not a wider governance issue. It's around that, which is then repeated in terms of a significant weakness later in the report.
Thank you. Councillor Cushing.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a question on page 29. It says there, in talking about results and findings, and it says financial statement review, we noted 63 casting errors. So my first question will be, what is a casting error? 26 internal inconsistency errors, and then so the material variances. So just wonder if you could shed a little bit more light on those. Should they be something we should be losing sleep over, or are they sort of in the context is it 63 out of 100,000, or is it 63 out of 100? So just to quantify really if there's any particular issue there.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, probably don't know the total number of checks, but if I explain essentially what we've done is we've done a very high level check of the accounts. Now that includes arithmetic checks on every set of figures within those set of accounts. So when we say 63 casting errors, what we're saying is when we've looked at a total, it's incorrectly calculated. Probably most of those may be rounding, but it's just the way the report runs. It just picks up anything that's not right and then it's churned out. As I say, we're not going into detail on those to look at them or anything like that because we're disclaiming the set of accounts, but that's the casting errors. The internal consistencies, again, it's a bit formulaic. It's where I don't know that a note is referencing from a main statement to one of the notes, and at first glance it doesn't look like it ties up. Now some of those notes weren't meant to tie up, but we're just reporting top level. I think it's here in the report more for the committee and the council's attention to consider for 4.5 in terms of, okay, well, let's just make sure we get that right for 4.5. As you say, the accounts are being disclaimed. We haven't done any detailed work. We're not saying necessarily they are absolutely wrong because we haven't done enough work in order to prove they're absolutely wrong, but they are observations from our high level review of the accounts.
Are you able to quantify at all, though, in the sort of the number of checks that you do?
When I said, I don't know how big the accounts are, probably ranging nearly to 100 pages. We've checked every calculation within that set. I don't know, 5 or 6 calculations on each page, probably more because you've got comparatives on both sides. So we've checked every calculation on that set of accounts.
Okay, no, thank you. That gives some context for the number that we're talking about. And like you say, some of it could well be rounding errors. Officer Stankley.
Yes, with it is surprisingly difficult to get them to balance exactly unless you go down to pounds and pence. And what works, so like with you showing 2 years sets of accounts, so it may be that what works in terms of the figures in 1 year doesn't work in terms of the figures for the next year. So you may take something across as say 965, but in the new year's accounts it needs to be 966. That will be picked up as an error in terms of inconsistencies. It is very difficult to do, and if you keep rounding down, it gets more and more adrift each year. It's not a case of them being completely added up wrong or anything like that. It's not something that we've got a solution to really, unless we showed everything down to pounds and pence.
Okay, so it's not something that we should be having too many sleepless nights over. Good. Thank you. Councillor Boyle.
Yeah, it's page 22. Looking at the work plan, significant, inherent and other risk areas. And whilst I understand that the council implemented a new finance system during late 22-23, there was, which was necessary, it suggests that this was a new risk, and I was just hoping that you'd be able to give us some assurance that the work's been carried out to minimise risk as it's gone through to the new system.
guess from an external audit point of view, an internal audit, I assume have carried out work on this new system, but from an external point of view, this is kind of caught up in that kind of gap where we didn't do audit work. So 22-23 was obviously one of those years where we went straight to disclaim. In a normal year, in that 22-23, we would have got our IT specialists to essentially crawl all over that new system. Because we didn't do an audit during that year, you then move into 23-24. You start to say, well, if something significant was going to go wrong with that system, it would have happened by now. So then the kind of procedures start to scale down a little bit. But as we've also gone to straight to disclaim in 23-24, we can't kind of give that level of assurance at the moment. What we'll do in 24-25 is almost go back to that transition date and just make sure the balances correctly came across. We'll then walk through the council's systems, including the IT type environment. And I think it's that piece of work that would then pull out anything that's significant in relation to that new system. But as I said, probably more relevant because of the timing of that new system is internal audit reports that have happened since that date.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you. Any more questions? Right. In which case, are we happy then? So we've reviewed and noted the accounts, and is everyone happy then for me to sign off these accounts as a true a record as we can have without a full audit at this stage? Yes. Lovely, thank you. There being no further business and there being no need to dismiss the press and public, ends the meeting. Thank you very much indeed.